Hi, welcome to our channel of IGNOU Audiobooks, Indira Gandhi National Open University, School of Sciences, SOS, Others Programs, Appreciation Course on Environment, ACE, Block 1 Environmental Concerns, Unit 3 Development and Environment, 3.1 Introduction. The ZO century is generally regarded as the century of development in science and technology and advances in economic growth. It was also a century of the decimation of the environment through the overuse of the non-renewable well as the renewable resources of the planet in the name of development and improvement in the lifestyles of the human population. In the previous two units, we explored the components of the environment and the principles that govern the ecosystem. We discussed the available natural resources and the means of exploring them in a judicious manner. In this unit, we will discuss the various issues and concerns related to the impact of some developmental activities essential for human survival. Activities like agriculture, industry, energy generation that lead to the overexploitation of biological resources and to the deterioration of environmental quality and enormous loss of vegetal cover at the local, in the Indian context, regional and global level. We will also discuss the impact of the accompanying urbanization that is essential for the growth and economic prosperity of a nation. You will realize that the majority of the victims of environmental disasters are the impoverished ones in the poor nations, and any degradation of the environment makes their survival even more difficult and uncertain. The connections between the environment and development are so intricate and tight that any attempt to untangle them would only lead to illogical conclusions and counterproductive solutions. Therefore, the concept of sustainable development, that is, development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of the future generations to meet their needs, has also been discussed in this unit. Objectives. After reading this unit, you will become aware times of the various issues and concerns related to developmental activities and the environment at local, regional, and global levels, times how various essential human activities such as agriculture, industry, and energy generation have led to environmental degradation, deforestation, soil erosion, and a host of other environmental problems, times of the impact of urbanization on the various aspects of the environment, and times of the need for sustainable development so that our environmental resources and services remain healthy and available to our future generations. 3.2 Development Issues and Concerns. It is a common myth that there was no destruction of the environment before the advent of industrialization. In fact, human activities have resulted in changes the environment since early times. Some of the greatest deforestations around the Mediterranean region took place in the Greek and Roman era, when indiscriminate logging for shipbuilding and for use as fuel in daily life and activities related to mining led to rapid clearing of trees and consequent desertification. As the human population was small then, the ecosystem was able to sustain the impact of human interference. But with the growing population, the needs of the people also grew, and so did the impact of their activities. With developments in agricultural practices, industrialization, and mining techniques, there has been a marked increase in production as well as consumption, a shift towards non-degradable products such as plastics, and increased use of non-renewable resources such as petroleum products. However, in the last few decades, the hazardous impact of human activities has accelerated and become more visible in all major spheres: hydrosphere, atmosphere, and parts of the lithosphere. Pressure from the ever-growing population, uncontrolled lavish consumption, urbanization, and industrial expansion coupled with huge demands for energy have caused the changes that are serious concerns for the environment. It is a well-known fact that growth and development of the human society, even the very existence of human beings, requires many natural resources, both physical as well as biological. For all practical purposes, land is limited, water, though replenishable, over a period of time can also become scarce. Air is seemingly inexhaustible, but due to severe deterioration of its quality through changes in its composition can become unusable. Energy in its natural form, like sunlight, appears abundant, but it is critically in short supply at the level of the consumer. Fossil fuels like coal, petroleum, natural gas, and radioactive elements are definitely finite. Their increasing use is resulting in their fast depletion. The unprecedented growth in world production and consumption is leading to environmental stress through irreversible impacts at local, regional, and global levels. Global warming and ozone level depletion and examples of global environmental degradation, acid rain, and the state of oceans in several countries are of international concerns, and the more local impacts are due to air and water pollution, soil degradation, deforestation, etc. Even now, in most developing countries, poverty, malnutrition, infectious and parasitic diseases, shortages of food and water, poor sanitation, and lack of proper housing are the major concerns rather than issues of global warming or ozone depletion. The major concerns of the developed and the underdeveloped countries have been compared in Table 3. Table 3.1 Environmental concerns of the developed and developing countries. Environmental aspect. Developing countries. Developed countries air pollution in major cities, air pollution, global warming, ozone depletion, land and soil erosion, desertification, loss of arable land, soil loss, solid waste disposal, changing land use, fresh water shortage, inland and marine water pollution, flora and fauna deforestation, fuel wood shortage, loss of genetic diversity, loss of cropland. The environmental issues arising out of developmental activities have to be examined keeping in view the growth of world population as well as consumption level. The 1972 UN World Conference on the Human Environment held at Stockholm also highlighted the differences in the points of view of the developed and the developing countries regarding development and environment. The developing countries saw development above the concerns for the environment, while the developed countries saw the population growth as the main reason for the environmental crisis. Among environmentalists, too, there are two opinions, one that tends to put greater blame for environmental deterioration on the population growth mainly in the developing nations. The other viewpoint is that the overconsumption patterns of the industrialized nations is responsible for the present-day environmental problems. See Figure 3. 1. Most environmental issues are related either to the interaction between human population and natural resources, resource consumption, that is, those caused by taking resources from the environment or putting waste into the environment, or factors associated with the sheer growth of the human population. On examining resource consumption patterns, we find that per capita consumption in developed countries is far greater than in developing nations. The industrialized countries are responsible for the greatest impact of natural resource consumption on the global environmental problems like changes in the atmosphere, while poverty and inability to meet even the basic needs often forces the use of natural resources in developing countries in ways that lead to environmental degradation. World Resources 1994-95. In 1990, the Earth Summit at Rio de Janeiro was held to discuss the global environmental issues and focused on the links between the environment and development. At Rio, the governments agreed upon the Local Agenda 21, a plan designed to tackle environmental issues globally, nationally, and locally. It brought out the relationship between poverty, development, and environmental degradation. The main issue agreed upon was that the rich nations had an ecological debt to pay to the poorer nations because of the disproportionate consumption of natural resources in the wealthier nations. 10 years later, this issue of unsustainable pattern of development and consumption of resources, particularly in the developed world, was raised in the World Summit on Sustainable Development held in Johannesburg, South Africa. You will read more about this in section 3.7 of this unit. While the world population crossing the 6 billion mark and expected to reach 8 billion by mid-century is a cause of concern, there is not enough effort to examine or reduce the consumption levels in the developed nations. For example, calculations show that if petroleum used in New York was available to the poor in the form of kerosene, the entire firewood consumption of the third world can be replaced. See box 3.1 also. Apart from pollution, which is a common concern of both developed and developing countries, another cause for concern is that environmental stresses often both point the cause and effect of military conflict. Throughout history, disputes over environmental resources has been common. Disputes over river waters have taken place in North America over Rio Grande, in Southeast Asia, over the waters of the Ganges and Mekong, over the Nile in Africa. Relations between Britain and Argentina have strained due to a declaration of exclusive fishing zone around Maldives' Falkland Islands. Such conflicts are likely to increase in the future as competition for scarce resources increases. Box 3.1 Unsustainable consumption patterns times the total resource consumption of 20 average families in the developing world is less than the consumption of one British family having 2 children. Times India uses less paper for printing textbooks than Scandinavian countries use for printing pornographic literature. Times 1/5 the world's population in the North, USA, Canada, Western Europe and Japan consumes 80% of the world's resources. Times per capita emission of greenhouse gas tildes in the US is 12 times that of South Asia. Issues and concerns in India. Since independence, India has made rapid progress. We are becoming progressively industrialized and urbanized. We have the third largest pool of scientific and technological manpower after USA and Russia. Industrialization is considered a sign of development of a nation, and India has seen a 5-fold increase in industrial production in the last 30 years. However, issues related to development in India are similar to issues faced by other developing countries. These are times poverty, times clean air, times clean water for drinking and domestic use, times education, times malnutrition, health care and sanitation, times good soil to provide food and fodder to increasing human and livestock population, times fuel for cooking and heating, times shelter. You are already aware that there has been a population explosion in India since independence, from 300 million in 1947 to over a billion today. This rapidly growing population, along with increased economic development, has placed a strain on India's environment as well as on the infrastructure of the country. If not managed properly, providing even the basics would result in more negative environmental impacts. If we are to reach the level of the developed countries, then resource consumption is bound to increase. Since the last 2 decades, people in India are becoming increasingly aware of the environmental problems of global warming, acid rain, scarcity of fodder and fuel wood, pollution of air, water and soil from hazardous chemicals and radiation. The State of the Environment Report for India, prepared by TER, broadly covers the 5 priority issues pertaining to the environment identified by the Government of India as per the UNEP guidelines. In addition, other issues addressing economic and social development are also included. The 5 priority issues are: 1. Land degradation, which occurs through the natural and man-made processes of vine erosion, water erosion, and waterlogging, has been identified as one of the priority concerns in India. The result of such degradation is the loss of invaluable nutrients and lower food grain production. Poor land use practices and management are responsible for the rapid land degradation in India. 2. Loss of biodiversity is of great Seoul. 11 to India, since many plant and animal species are severely threatened by a destruction of their habitat and an overexploitation of resources. A large number of species are either endangered or on the verge of extinction, both of which can be attributed to a lack of policy and institutional mechanisms. 3. Air pollution with special reference to vehicular pollution in cities. Air pollution in India can broadly be attributed to rapid industrialization, energy production, urbanization, commercialization, and an increase in the number of motorized vehicles. VLUs are a major source of pollutants in cities and towns. Apart from the sheer numbers, other factors contributing to the increasing vehicular pollution in urban areas include the types of engines used, age of vehicles, density of traffic, road conditions, and the status of automotive technologies and traffic management systems. 4. Management of fresh water resources. The availability of fresh water is going to be the most pressing problem in India over the coming decades. The stress on water resources is a result of multiple factors, namely urban growth, increased industrial activities, intensive farming, and the overuse of fertilizers and other chemicals in agricultural production. Untreated water from urban settlements and industrial activities and runoff from agricultural land carrying chemicals are primarily responsible for the deterioration of water quality and the contamination of lakes, rivers, and groundwater aquifers. 5. Hazardous waste management with special reference to municipal solid waste management. There has been a significant increase in the quantities of municipal solid wastes and hazardous waste generated in India over the last few decades. The largest quantities of hazardous waste are generated by the following industries: petrochemicals, pharmaceuticals, pesticides, paints and dyes, petroleum, fertilizers, asbestos, caustic soda, inorganic chemicals, and general engineering. The rate of generation of solid waste in urban centers has outpaced population growth in recent years, with the wastes normally disposed in low-lying areas of the city's outskirts. India. State of the Environment 2001. These core environmental issues are vital for the long-term economic development in India, needed to provide the basic amenities to all the citizens. Industrial pollution continues to remain a major problem, accentuated by expansion of the chemical industry in the recent past. Against an economic growth of 163% in the past 20 years, the pollution load increased by more than 475%. During the period from 1975 to 95, industrial pollution grew by 247%. The impact of this is being felt in the highly toxic quality of water bodies, deteriorating ambient air quality, and land degradation. India Development Report 2002. The threat of climatic change due to the emission of greenhouse gases, GHG, mainly carbon dioxide, is by now well known. India is already facing pressure to reduce its emission of GHGs, though the unsustainable consumption patterns of industrialized nations have led to the accumulation of GHGs. The three impacts generally expected of climate change are effects on agriculture, sea level rise leading to submergence of coastal areas, and increased frequencies of extreme events such as drought, floods, cyclones, etc. Each of these poses a serious threat to India. It is important that we must recognize the cyclic relationship between the environment, development, and poverty. As poverty increases, pressure on the natural resources increases, leading to environmental degradation. Prospects of further employment declines. Thus, environmental degradation generates more poverty. At least 500 million of the world's poorest people live in ecologically marginal areas who may indulge in overexploitation of the natural resources resulting in the decline in productivity. Thus, we see that environmental challenges arise from lack of development and also from development processes. The biggest challenge is to implement a development process that will lead to greater equity, growth, and sustainability. In the following sections, we will discuss the impact of various developmental activities like agriculture, energy generation, industrialization, and urbanization. On the environment, 3.3 Impact of agricultural practices. Agriculture is probably the oldest industry set up by humans. It is also the largest industry as well. More than half the world's population is engaged in agriculture, hence it would be expected that agriculture would leave its impact on the environment. Before you start reading about the changes in human environment, we would like you to know about the history of land use patterns during different periods of time so that it is easier for you to compare and correlate the damages caused by different agricultural practices. Figure 3.2 gives a brief account of the agro-ecosystems. The transformation from traditional to modern agriculture depicts the evolution of more energy-intensive and more productive agriculture from less energy-intensive and less productive agriculture. In the figure, you can see the shifts in agricultural practices that have brought in significant changes in land use patterns, health of natural resources, quantum and direction of material flow, and livelihood patterns. Agriculture has undergone significant changes during the last century. Use of modern implements, electric-powered irrigation systems, fossil fuel-based agro-machinery, chemical fertilizers, plant protection chemicals, and high-yielding varieties in traditional agriculture are some of the inputs that make it modern, while modern agriculture has brought in enormous increase in crop production. On the one hand, on the other, it has caused great damage to the natural balance of the environment. For simplicity, we have divided the impact of agropastoral activities into two categories. A. Changes brought about by traditional agriculture. These include defacement of land, deforestation coupled with loss of soil structure, soil erosion, and depletion of soil nutrients. Some of these changes are shared with overgrazing, which is also a byproduct of efforts to exploit the land resources for maximum livestock production regardless of the ability of the ecosystem to withstand external interventions. Traditional agriculture sometimes has serious consequences. See box 3.2. B. Changes brought about by modern agriculture. Modern agricultural practices continue to share the disruptive effects of traditional agriculture. They also brings about some changes in the environment that are characteristic only of modern agriculture. For example, excessive irrigation results in twin problems of salinization and waterlogging. Addition of chemical fertilizers increases the rate of loss of micronutrients from the soil, causes eutrophication of water bodies. The use of plant protection chemicals poison food products, sometimes kill non-target friendly organisms and help target organisms to develop immunity, and use of high-yielding varieties makes agriculture market-oriented. Encourages monoculture, causing eruption of epidemics and depletion of genetic diversity. Whilst these environmental problems have the greatest impact in the developing world, they are also shared to some extent by the more developed countries. Now we will discuss some of the major impacts of modern agriculture that lead to the environmental issue of land degradation. 3.3.1 Deforestation. Removal of forest cover for agricultural activities is a major cause of deforestation in the developing countries, most of which are in the tropics. Tropical forests account for nearly half the world's remaining forests, covering an area of 2x107 km. In contrast, in the more developed countries, the rate of deforestation has stopped, and in some there has been a reversal with the Implementation of afforestation programs. In India, forest depletion has been arrested to some extent. But forest cover still declined from 63.89 million hectares (MHA) in 1995 to 63.34 MHA in 1997. State of Forest Report 1997, Forest Survey of India, Dehradun. Deforestation of forests is caused by a number of human activities, of which shifting agriculture is a primary cause. Though this type of activity has coexisted with the rainforests for thousands of years, in recent years the incidence has greatly increased as farmers forced off land by cash cropping and ranching turned to the rainforest for sustenance. Other causes of deforestation are mineral extraction, the building of roads and dams, and logging operations. On a local level, the environmental problems associated with removal of forest cover involve the water cycle. The water taken up by trees reduces the amount available for surface runoff. When deforestation occurs, surface runoff increases, leading to severe soil erosion and floods. For example, in the mountainous regions of Flandia and Nepal, entire hillsides have been stripped off, their forest covers, and the monsoon rains have washed them away. On a regional level, the increase in surface runoff causes downstream flooding, transporting along huge amounts of sediment, causing the problem of siltation. On the global scale, the burning of biomass associated with deforestation is contributing to the increase in atmospheric carbon dioxide levels. See Box 3.2. Also, deforestation is also a major cause of loss of biological diversity, for tropical forests are said to contain at least half of the world's plant and animal species. World Resource Institute. Box 3.2. Consequences of deforestation. The Indonesian forest fires. Indonesia has the world's second largest rainforests after Brazil. During the period from August 1997 to May 1998, at least 2 million hectares of these rainforests were destroyed by fire. In previous such burning incidences, the farmers engaged in slash and burn agriculture were held responsible. But this time, large-scale plantation companies, encouraged by government policies to clear large areas of rainforest for cultivation of rubber trees or oil palms, have largely been held responsible. The extremely dry conditions at that time encouraged the deliberate burning of the forests and also assisted the fires to turn out of control. Peat bog forests also caught fire in large areas, and these continued to smolder for weeks, producing large amounts of smoke that enveloped Southeast Asia. Ref. Pears, F. 1998, Playing with Fire, New Scientist, 21st March 36-39. 3.3.2 Salinization and water logging. Salinization is the accumulation of salts, mainly carbonates, chloride and sulfates in soil, surface water and groundwater. This process occurs naturally in arid and semi-arid regions, forming salt flats where salt come to the surface due to capillary action as the water evaporates. The excessive irrigation of arid and semi-arid regions to enable crop cultivation has greatly increased the salinization of soil. Salt-affected soils cover 5.5 MHA of the 328 MHA of India's total in area, ICID, 2002. India has a total of 3.58 MHA of alkaline soils that contain excessive sodium carbonate and sodium bicarbonate. Out of these, half fall under agricultural land but remain unproductive. In our enthusiasm to provide more water to agricultural fields, we have employed canal irrigation as well as tube wells for drawing water from the deep core of the earth. Excessive irrigation without proper drainage raises the water table. As a result, the soil becomes drenched with water or waterlogged. According to the Central Water Commission, a total area of 8.5 MHA is water-logged. Such soils cannot support plant growth as they lack air and mechanical strength. India has the largest irrigated area in the world 59.00 mha and in 19,97,501 billion cubic meters BCM water was utilized in irrigation and the demand for water is expected to increase in the coming years. ICID 1998. 3.3.3 Soil erosion and desertification. Soil erosion occurs when the removal of soil occurs at a much faster rate than its replacement by weathering of underlying bedrock. It is a natural process mediated by water and wind. Human activities involving inappropriate agricultural practices have greatly increased the rate of soil erosion in many parts of the world. The estimated annual soil loss through erosion is in the region of 75,000 million tons. Soil erosion is a problem in both developing as well as developed countries. As mentioned earlier, high population pressure in the developing nations have resulted in the cultivation of marginal lands. Such lands may inherently have low fertility as they may be on the margins of deserts or on land made available by clearing rainforests. Without the protection of forest cover or crop cover, the bare soil is exposed to forces of soil erosion. The worst form of erosion prevalent in agricultural lands is wash-off erosion or sheet erosion, which becomes important in the hilly regions. In semi-arid and arid regions, soil erosion is strongly associated with desertification. Desertification describes the final stages by which former productive semi-arid and arid land is degraded into unproductive desert mainly due to human activities. The global rate of desertification is estimated to be about 6 million hectares per year. The problem of desertification is a continuing one, especially in the developing world, as the need to increase agricultural production leads to cultivation of marginal lands. 3.3.4 Fertilizers and plant protection chemicals. Most of the chemical fertilizers used in modern agro-ecosystems contain macronutrients, that is, nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium, NKP. But excessive use of NPK causes the plant to draw more micronutrients as well from the soil. The rate of growth of plants often exceeds the soil's ability to replenish the micronutrients. Thus, excessive use of fertilizers causes micronutrient deficiency in soils. Zinc deficiency, for example, in large tracts of land in the high-yielding belt of Punjab and Haryana has depressed the productivity of the land. Another adverse effect of excessive fertilizer use is that about one-fourth of the applied fertilizer is not used by the plants and is leached down. These chemicals, usually nitrates, find their way into groundwater aquifers, increasing the concentration of nitrates in drinking water. This has become a serious health hazard because excess amounts of nitrates causes methemoglobinemia in bottle-fed infants. Excess fertilizers are carried by runoff water into aquatic bodies, causing eutrophication. You will read more about this in Unit 4. Toxic chemicals like insecticides, fungicides, herbicides and rodenticides are generally used to protect crops or their harvested products. These chemicals, generally known as biocides, tend to remain active for long periods after their use is over, which makes them dangerous to the environment because these are non-biodegradable. Some over 70,000 different kinds of biocides are being used in the world. In India, 110 over 82,000 tons of pesticides were used in 1991 as against 2,000 tons in the mid-50s annually. Ministry of Agriculture 1992. On continued application, these agrochemicals cause contamination of food, materials, disruption of the natural balance of the ecosystem by killing non-target organisms and gradual increase in immunity in the target organisms. Traces of fertilizers and pesticides from fields find their way into rivers. Levels of pesticides in the Yamuna are found to be higher than the permissible levels, Further, these chemicals are often not biodegradable. Once they enter the food chain, they get accumulated and concentrated in the organism's body through biological magnification. You have read about this in Unit I. 3.3.5 High yielding varieties, HYV. The HYVs are man made varieties of agricultural plants, fodder plants, forest plants, livestock, and fish that have been raised by breeding techniques to yield more. As an outcome, farmers were able to achieve greater output, increase in yield, and greater monetary returns from agriculture. The success of these plant breeding programs is popularly called Green Revolution, and it was responsible for the self-sufficiency in food production in India. However, the introduction of HYVs has not been universally beneficial. In order to realize their full potential, these varieties necessitate the use of fertilizers and biocides, water in the form of irrigation, and fuel-powered machinery. HYVs are totally dependent on humans for their survival because left to themselves they cannot compete with their wild relatives. The HYVs also encourage monoculture, which means the same genotype is planted for kilometers at a stretch. Large-scale monoculture of a specific variety makes it highly susceptible to infections and may get wiped out under attack from a pathogen. HYVs cause loss of agrobiodiversity, as their use replaces the cultivation of other local varieties which are ultimately lost. 3.4 Impact of industrialization. After agricultural practices, the next major change in human society was the Industrial Revolution, which began in England. Human inventiveness to the discovery of methods for using chemical energy stored in fossil fuels such as coal and later oil and natural gas. Horse-drawn vehicles and wind-powered ships were replaced by coal-burning steam engines. Within a few decades, the agriculture-based rural societies were transformed into more urbanized early, industrialized societies. From England, the new ways spread to form what are now known as the core nations of the developed world. By 1870, there were distinct industrial regions in France and Belgium, Russia, Germany, USA, and Japan. All these were characterized by an increased per capita consumption of energy based on coal as fuel. Along with industrialization, the population also grew. By 1880, the population of Great Britain had trebled in less than a century, and these people concentrated into towns and other emerging urban centers. Once set in motion, the industrial growth was rapid everywhere. The development of more efficient machines and techniques for mass production and advances in science and technology led to the level of industrialization that we see today. In impact on environment, to understand the impact of industrial suction, we can take one LP the example of a steel mill or a coal mine and examine its environmental impact at the local and regional level. Let us start at the local level. The impact on the local environment would be in the form of changed land use, with a large area covered by buildings, sheds, heaps of materials, roads, and hard surfaces. See Fig. 3.3. During construction, there must have been vast amounts of bare soil that would contribute to silt in the runoff, and when completed, the plant would show urban features. A heavily built-up zone would therefore affect the local water bodies. The quality of water is also likely to be affected through percolation of wastes from the factory. Its load of suspended as well as dissolved matter would be therefore higher, and some of the substances carried are likely to be toxic to life. There would be greater organic component of sewage in the watercourse downstream too. Similarly, the air near the plant would be polluted. There would be greater fallout of soot near the chimney, which would affect the people living nearby. In downwind direction, the impact reduces progressively, but sulfur compounds will rain as dilute acid rain and destroy buildings as well as vegetation. We can extend this model to the whole planet. The developed regions can be regarded as this plant and the rest of the world the outreach for its raw material and waste products. With the industrialization of the planet, using the temperate grasslands to grow food crops, or converting them into ranches to provide meat in the developed countries met the demand for food. Demand for other cash crops such as tea, coffee, rubber, and paper increased and large areas of forests were converted into plantations. Most developing countries started at independence with virtually no modern industry. During the 1960s and 1970s, their industrial production, employment, and trade consistently grew. Industry and its products have an impact on the natural resource base through the entire cycle of raw materials exploration, extraction, and transformation into products, energy consumption, waste, generation, and the use by the consumer. These impacts may be positive, enhancing the quality of the resource or extending its use, or they may be negative as a result of process and product pollution and of the depletion of resources. Our common future 1987. The negative impacts were first perceived as localized problem of air, land and water pollution in the developed countries as the Los Angeles smog or the death of large lakes as Lake Erie in the US and the progressive pollution of all the major rivers in the West. Similar problems have also been found in many parts of the developing world as industrial growth, increase in automobile numbers and urbanization spreads. Industrial development has contributed significantly to economic growth in India, however, not without a environmental price. India has seen a five-fold increase in industrial production in the last 3 decades. With the new industrial policy, it is expected to further accelerate. With coal accounting for 52% of total primary energy consumption in 1999, this industrial development has been fueled by a relatively high polluting energy source. Not only is industrial pollution increasing public health risks, but abatement efforts also are consuming a significant portion of India's GDP. A report from Ministry of Environment and Forests estimates that the annual cost of environmental degradation in India in the past few years is averaging about 4.5% of GDP. Source: Energy Information Administration, June 2001. In many cities in the developing world, environmental pollution is much worse than any that was experienced in the developed world in the 1950s or the 1960s. Vehicle exhaust, coal burning and particles from coal combustion and factories in air that causes serious health problems. More than 2,000 people died in Bhopal in India in 1984 from release of methyl isocyanate out of the Union Carbide factory. Such industrial accidents too that are disastrous for both the environment and the people, whether industries are large or small, they all create pollution-related problems as they generate huge amounts of waste. Therefore, environmental pollution is also compounded by rapid industrialization and increase in the number of automobiles. Most of our industrial cities are often referred to as cities of functioning chaos, as the haphazard and uncontrolled growth of different industries in our industrial cities pose environmental challenges in the shape of slums, toxic wastes and gases and discharge of effluents into water bodies. Box 3.3 Haphazard industrialization and urbanization. Ludhiana, known as the Manchester of India, is the fastest growing city in Punjab state of the Indian Union. It is located 250 kilometers from New Delhi. It is the most populous city in the state and the most polluted too. According to the 1991 census, the population now exceeds 1 million. The fast industrial growth and rapid population growth has led to many problems typical of unplanned development. The living standard is perhaps at its minimum tolerable level. The city faces water pollution, depletion of groundwater sources due to excessive and unsustainable use. The water in and around industrial estates of the city is unfit for drinking, the city's dying industry and hosiery units and the sewerage system have converted the water body, Buddha Nala, into an open sewer, polluting the groundwater downstream before the Nala joins the river, Sutlej. The air hangs thick with pollutants, and on account of high population density, the incidence of TB have increased, especially in the congested localities of migrant labor. 3.5 Impact of urbanization. With the advancements in technology, increase in economic development, and human population, we are becoming more of an urban species. Urbanization is a global phenomenon. People move from villages to cities as cities provide better economic opportunities, educational facilities, and healthcare and entertainment options. From less than 10% of the global population in 1700, city dwellers now account for more than half, about 51%, of a much larger total. Rapid urbanization first occurred in the developed countries, but recent urban growth has occurred dramatically in the large cities of the developing countries. In 1900, 13 cities in the world had population over 1 million each. Except Tokyo, all were in either Europe or North America. In 2000, however, there were 400 metropolitans with more than 1 million inhabitants, of which a large number was in India and China. In the developing countries, urban growth has been the most rapid in a few cities, which are referred to as megalopolises or mega-cities. The mega-cities of the poorer countries have been growing at a much faster rate than those in the developed world. See Table 3.2. Although there are numerous examples of mega-cities in the developed world, they are primarily a phenomenon of the developing world. According to the population projections for the 11 largest urban agglomerates in 2015, in 12 years most of the largest cities of the world will be in the developing world, a significant change from the largest city populations in 1980 and 1994. Although Tokyo will remain the largest city in the world, New York, at second place in 1980 and 1994, is projected to be at the bottom of the list by 2015, while Mumbai will have climbed from 6th to 2nd place. Both Tokyo and New York are experiencing relatively modest population increases, and a number of other large cities in the developed world are experiencing population declines. In contrast, the populations of developing world mega-cities are typically growing over 1 to 5% per year. Although these growth rates are expected to abate somewhat in the next 15 years, urbanization alters the environment locally as well as regionally, affecting the climate, water flow, and biodiversity, creating new hazards and problems of security and safety. The consumption of land is the most obvious impact of urbanization, but the impact spreads to frontiers far beyond areas actually converted for settlements. Timber, fuel, building materials, and water are extracted from ever-widening zones around the cities to meet their ever-growing needs, and at the same time growing quantities of solid wastes, landfills, water, and air pollution are exported out to the hinterland by the urban centers. The extent of resources used by a city can be visualized as its ecological footprint. Box 3.4 Ecological footprint. Ecological footprint calculations are based on average per capita consumption of food, forest products, and fuel in a given geographic area. The size of the footprint is determined by calculating how much land would be needed to produce that food, wood and paper, and the equivalent amount of biomass needed to substitute ethanol for oil or gas. Using 1993 United Nations data on population and consumption levels, Vaquimigel and his colleagues working at the Center for Sustainability Studies in Veracruz, Mexico, calculated the ecological footprints of 52 nations, as well as a global average. The results show a wide range of different national footprints ranging from a modest 0.7 hectare per person in Bangladesh and zero point 0.8 hectare in India and Pakistan to 9.8 hectares per capita in New Zealand, 8.4 hectares in the United States and 7.0 hectares in Canada. European nations generally have smaller footprints, with France and Norway using 5.7 hectares per inhabitant and Germany 4.6 hectares. Urbanization in India. India is probably one of the least urbanized countries in the world. Between 1951 and 2001, the level of urbanization increased only by 13 percentage points. However, if population sizes are taken into account, India has the second largest urban population in the world. More than two-thirds of this population lives in regions having population greater than 1 million, and one-fourth of this population lives in the four mega cities, namely Mumbai, Kolkata, Delhi and Chennai, with populations more than 10 million each in 2001. 3.5.1 Positive impacts of urbanization. The process of urbanization is often accompanied by major economic and structural changes. New jobs are created and improved services are provided. Urban regions provide better facilities of electricity, health, education, infrastructure, and safe drinking water and toilet facilities in comparison to rural areas. For example, 61% of urban households have electricity, toilets, and safe drinking water, whereas only 12.3% in rural areas possess these facilities. In case of energy use, 35% of urban households use liquefied petroleum gas and 27% use kerosene, whereas in rural areas, nearly 80% of households use inconvenient biomass-based fuels. There is better exposure to mass media in urban areas. More than half of the total population in rural areas in 1990 was not exposed to any type of media. With the spread of satellite TV network, the situation is changing, but the difference is likely to persist. 3.5.2 Problems of urbanization. The negative effects, like the deterioration of the physical environment and quality of life caused by the shortfall in demand and supply of the essentials, overwhelm the positive impact of urbanization. Urbanization has resulted in environmental degradation in a number of ways, such as changes in land use. Towns and cities grow with economic growth of human societies. As towns grow, they invade the productive croplands and rich forests. Both intracity and regionally open lands are converted into built-up area. Thus, the land with all its biological resources is irreversibly lost. An estimated area of 1.5 maha of good agricultural land has been gobbled up by towns and cities since 1950, and another 8 maha of such land may have been similarly diverted for this purpose by 2000 AD. The first master plan of Delhi envisaged an area of 44,000 ha and called for acquiring 32,000 ha of agricultural land. Within 20 years, the city has expanded by more than 35%. Indian cities which are 30 years or older have lost practically all wildlife from their suburbs due to encroachment on agriculture land in their surroundings, 2. Depletion of water resources. Water requirements of the rapidly growing urban population also increases many times, but due to the limited resources, it is becoming increasingly difficult to meet the requirements of the municipal water supply. In Mumbai, as against the demand of 3,026 million liters per day (MLD) in 1995, only 60% was supplied. Delhi is no better, with average water demand for over 3,600 MLD, only 2,947.5 MLD is being supplied. It may be mentioned that these are A-class cities. In smaller towns, the position of water supply is much worse. Due to extensive built-up areas, the local groundwater recharges decline and the cities have to draw water from outside. With further growth, the increased water demand can be met only by drawing water from distant sources. Presently, Delhi is drawing water from Ramganga, 180 kilometers away. Indore, from Narmada, 75 kilometers away, and Bangalore from Kaveri at a distance of 100 kilometers. Chennai is seeking water from Krishna in Andhra Pradesh and Kaveri in Kamtaka with 600 meters lift. In each of these cases, water from the cities has to be drawn at the cost of cultivation and rural demands. 3. Building materials, construction of houses and other structures need large quantities of building materials. Delhi's estimated need is 80,000 new houses every day. Material for this has to be brought from adjoining areas, comprising fertile land causing further damage to good agricultural areas. 4. Industries. Industrial development goes almost hand in hand with urbanization. For examples, nearly 60% of the industries in Maharashtra are located in Mumbai alone. Industries draw upon water resources heavily. Water requirement per ton of produce in a crude oil refinery is between 1 to 3 RRR, it is 5 to 8 meters, 3 for dairy, 20 to 403 for textiles, 100 to 250 meters, 3 for steel, 250 to 400 meters, 3 for pulp and paper, and 400 to 600 meters, 3 for viscose rayon, slum. United Nations estimates that at least 1 billion people live in crowded, unsanitary slums of the central cities and in the vast shanty towns, and squatter settlements that ring the outskirts of most of the mega cities of the developing world. Slums represent one of the worst types of environmental degradation, which have become concomitant to urbanization and industrialization. About 18.75% of India's urban population lives in slums. 60% of Mumbai's population is slum dwellers, and more than 500,000 people sleep on the streets, sidewalks, and traffic circles because they have no homes. While about 20% of the population of Delhi live in overcrowded informal settlements, and bastis or slums. Amongst the states, Bihar has 37.50% of its urban population as slum dwellers, followed by Maharashtra 32.63% and West Bengal 31.53%. Kerala with 8.81% and Kamtaka with 14.43% are the two states with lowest percentage of urban population in slums. The slum dwellers have an environment with inadequate living space, water supply, and sewerage facilities. This causes steady deterioration of surrounding regions as well as human health. 6. Water pollution. About 200 million people in the developing world do not get safe drinking water, according to United Nations. Pollution of fresh water bodies like urban lakes and rivers through urbanization and industrialization is colossal. About 90% of the drinking water in India comes from rivers polluted by these human activities. About 873 MLD of wastewater drained into the Ganga before the Ganga Action Plan was initiated. Sabarmati, a small river alone, receives 998 MLD of dirty water from the city of Ahmedabad. Source: State of India's Environment, 2001. About 2,700 large and small units contribute 70% by volume of the polluted effluents, and 30% comes from small and cottage industry sector. Further, few cities in the developing world can afford to build modern waste treatment systems for their rapidly growing cities. It is estimated that 300 million of the world's urban residents have inadequate sanitation. Only to 17 of the India's 3119 towns have even partial sewage systems and water treatment facilities. Thus, sewage both seeps into the soil and pollutes groundwater, or it flows through streams and rivers. Table 3.4 gives the status of wastewater generation and treatment in a few large cities in India in the year 1994 to 95. Delhi alone pours over 500 million liters of untreated sewage into Yamuna every day. while Ganga receives sewage and industrial wastes from 24 urban settlements along its bank. 7. Air pollution. The dense traffic, commonly old and poorly maintained vehicles, smoky factories, and use of coal or wood fires for cooking often create a thick pall of smoke in the world's mega cities. Most of the air pollution in urban locations results from the discharge of sulfur dioxide, oxides of nitrogen, hydrogen sulfide, and suspended particles, such as fly, ash, etc., and cause considerable damage to plants, animals, and to human health. You will read more about the sources and effects of pollution in the next unit. 8. Waste production. Solid waste produced by households, industry, hospitals, construction sites, etc., management and disposal problems in the urban areas of most countries. In India, uncontrolled dumping of waste on the outskirts of sites has created overflowing landfills which are environmental hazards. At the present tariff of solid waste generation, the 4 landfill sites of Delhi are likely to be filled very soon. This solid waste also leads to pollution of groundwater. And air. Table 3.5 shows the amount of solid waste generated by some of the major cities of India, and it is clear that the amount is increasing day by day. In addition to environmental degradation, urbanization has affected the social organization, family structure, culture, and behavior of the population living in the urban areas as well as those who are living outside the urban centers. 3.6 Impact of energy generation. Human beings have the remarkable capability to exploit energy transformations. They first learned to exploit the transformation of chemical energy to heat energy in the form of fire. Later they used the wind energy and energy in flowing water to sail their boats and to run wind and water mills. The use of fossil fuel and the discovery of steam engine were responsible for the Industrial Revolution, which has major economic and environmental implications. For centuries, people have been inventing devices to save human labor, provide entertainment, and make life more comfortable in the desire to improve their quality of life. That trend has led us to depend on a variety of energy-consuming machines without which life would be inconceivable. Our society would come to a halt without electricity, automobiles, trains, planes, computers, and so on. Today, our survival totally depends on 3 fossil fuels: coal, oil, and natural gas. In fact, per capita consumption of commercial energy is sometimes used as an indicator of economic advancement that a country has attained. As said earlier, India's per capita consumption of commercial energy is very low. It is only 1/8 of the world average. However, energy generation for human consumption involves potential environmental, political, or financial problems. It is a fact that developed nations have been using at least 10 times more energy than the developing nations for many years. The main concern with using fossil fuels is no longer seen as its availability but the absorption capacity of our environment. Fossil fuel power plants release air pollutants, require large amounts of cooling water, and can destroy large tracts of land during the mining process. Nuclear power plants are generating and accumulating copious quantities of radioactive waste that currently lack absolutely safe locations for storage or disposal. Even renewable energy facilities like large hydroelectrical projects are not without environmental and social impact. 3.6.1 Impact on air. The burning of fossil fuels such as coal, oil, and natural gas in the generation of electricity and in the internal combustion engine are altering the Earth's climate. Burning fossil fuels releases carbon that has previously been locked up in coal, oil, and natural gas for millions of years. The carbon in these fossil fuels is transformed into carbon dioxide, CO2, the predominant gas, contributing to the greenhouse effect. During the combustion process, the release of large quantities of fossilized carbon threatened to raise average global temperatures at an accelerated pace. Energy-related ventures account for about 86% of all greenhouse gas emissions linked to human activities. The generation of electricity by thermal power plants is the single largest source of CO2 emissions. Burning coal produces far more CO2 than oil or natural gas. Global warming also poses a major threat to human health by way of increased infectious diseases. Increasing temperatures nurture the spread of disease-carrying mosquitoes and rodents. As global temperatures rise, sea levels will also rise. Water previously bound to mountain and polar glaciers melts and flow into the world's seas. Much of the world's population, especially the poorer people of the world, live at or close to sea level, areas vulnerable to the lethal combination of rising sea level and increasingly severe ocean storms. Sea levels have already risen 4 to 10 inches over the last century. Source: www.whrc.org. Electricity generation using fossil fuels emits sulfur dioxides and oxides of nitrogen, which are a major cause of acid precipitation. Acid precursors can be carried in the atmosphere for several days and travel several hundred miles downwind of the power plant stack before being deposited on the Earth's surface. For example, because of prevailing winds, the northeastern United States and Canada receive significant quantities of acid precursors from coal-fired power plants in states stretching from Missouri to the west and Pennsylvania to the east. Of course, not all power plants generate the same level of air pollutants, contributing to acid rain. Emissions rates vary widely depending upon factors, as the precise fossil fuel type used, the nature of the combustion process, post-combustion air emission controls, as well as vintage of the power plant. Older coal plants, especially those designed to burn high sulfur content, coal are the most significant source of acid rain pollutants. India's large reserves of coal are a major asset to the country, accounting for 70% of India's current production of electricity. However, excessive use of this form of energy production, especially without the use of strategies to mitigate its effects, will cause the quality of the country's air, land, and water resources to deteriorate. While climate change and CID rain impact the general environment on a regional or global scale, air emissions from fossil fuel power plants also have direct impacts on human health. Most especially, human health is jeopardized from the formation of ozone, or smog, and fine particles that may form either in power plant smokestacks or in the air as a result of the emissions of any of the three primary gases: carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxide, or nitrogen oxides. Both ozone and fine particulates pose health risks within the vicinity of the emitting power plants or may travel hundreds of miles and pose health risks far from the sources of the precursor emissions. See Box 3.5. Electric power plant emissions account for about one-third of all NFRX released into the atmosphere from human sources. Box 3.5. Kolaghat Thermal Power Plant, West Bengal prides itself in its giant thermal power station, 21 OMWX6, in Kolaghat. Built in the 80s, the station has won the award for Best Performing Indian Power Plant several times. There is no doubt that this power station has changed the image of West Bengal from a power deficit state to a power surplus state. Yet for a large number of people staying in the vicinity, the power plant is a source of misery. Their problems stem from the daily emission of about 4,000 tons of fly ash by the plant. The fly ash, which is a byproduct of coal combustion and other materials for power generation, is suspected to have traces of alumina, various other toxic heavy metals, and carcinogenic elements. It has adversely affected the quality of life in a large area. The gravity of the situation is manifested in the large heaps of fly ash stacked along the roads, even 20 kilometers from the power plant. Men playing cards on rickety cots, perched on top of fly ash heaps, children playing in the ash are common sights. A vast grey sheet of fly ash particles remain hanging in the sky over Kolaghat and adjoining areas observing the vision. The large ponds nearby smell of the leaden ash. KTPS is fast acquiring vast tracts of land for creating ash ponds. According to the power sector norms, 1 megawatt of thermal power requires 1 to 10 acres of land for disposal of ash over 30 years. The ash handling system accounts for 5% of the total cost of a power project. A part of the ash and certain gases inevitably produced by burning of coal escape into the air through the chimneys. Even though the chimneys are fitted with electrostatic precipitators, coal-fueled electric power plants are also the single largest source of mercury emissions. An inventory of mercury emissions conducted by EPA of USA found that one-third of all mercury air emissions come from coal burning in electric power plants. Mercury is present in the coal used as feedstock in the utility boiler. As the coal is combusted in the utility boiler, mercury is vaporized and released as a gas. Pollution controls employed by utilities to curb other pollutants are not effective in removing mercury. At present, there are no commercially viable control technologies for mercury. As a consequence, this highly toxic air pollutant continues to go largely unabated. 3.6.2 Impact on water. Thermal electric generating facilities make electricity by converting water into high-pressure steam that drives turbines. Once water has gone through this cycle, it is cooled and condensed back to water and then reheated to drive the turbines again. The process of condensation requires a separate cooling water body to absorb the heat of the steam. The amount of water used for power plant cooling also varies by each specific power plant's electricity generating technology and size. For example, nuclear reactors require the most water for cooling, and fossil fuel power plants come in second. However, most renewable energy technologies require little or no water for cooling. Hydroelectric generation. To generate hydroelectric power, water from a fast-flowing river or a stream is diverted through turbines. Usually it involves the damming of a river and flooding of a valley. However, there are serious environmental problems associated with the construction of hydroelectrical power stations. Reservoirs inundate forests, farmlands, and wildlife habitats. Large tracts of land are lost, and often local population displaced as a consequence of developing a hydroelectric project. Water use and consumption. Most electric power plants require water to operate. Nuclear and fossil fuel power plants use over 185 billion gallons of water per day. Hydropower plants use water directly to generate power. These power plants represent the single largest consumer of water among any industrial, governmental, or residential activity. Withdrawal of large volumes of surface water for either power plant, cooling, or hydropower generation can adversely affect the fisheries resources by killing fish, larvae, and other aquatic organisms trapped against intake structures or swept up in the flow through the different sections of a power plant. The use of water to generate power at hydroelectric facilities imposes unique and not insignificant ecological impacts. The diversion of water out of a river removes water healthy in stream ecosystems. By slowing river flows, dams also allow silt to collect on river and reservoir bottoms and bury fish spawning habitat. The impoundment of water by hydropower facilities fundamentally reshapes the physical habitat from a riverine to an artificial pond community. This often eliminates native populations of fish and other wildlife. This impact is most significant on migratory fish, which breed in upstream reaches of the river and must migrate downstream early in life to the ocean and again migrate upstream to lay their eggs or spawn. For instance, the construction of the Farka Dam in West Bengal has disrupted the migration of Hilsa. Silt trapped above dams accumulates heavy metals and other pollutants. Disrupting the natural flow of sediments in rivers also promotes erosion of riverbeds downstream of the dam and increases risks of floods. Large fossil fuel and nuclear power plants are generally located near bodies of water as they need huge quantities of cooling water. A variety of processes associated with fuel handling and ongoing maintenance of large thermal power plants create or concentrate chemical pollutants that are then discharged into nearby water bodies. Even when releases are limited to what is allowed in water use permits, there is still the occasional but inevitable accidental release. 3.6.3 Impact on land. Power generating facilities alter the land use. Large electric generating facilities occupy acres upon acres of land just for the power plant components alone. These power plants also require on-site fuel storage facilities as well as structures for connecting to the transmission grid, which requires additional land. Depending on the fuel burned at any one power plant, electricity generators can leave their sites irrevocably scarred or polluted, causing on-site land impacts which often can never be completely cleaned off. Power plant sites may become sacrifice zones, sealed off from any future land use due to contamination linked to the operation of a power plant. Most generating facilities also produce solid waste byproducts of combustion that can be toxic. Solid wastes from power plants are typically landfilled, another way in which a generating facility impacts land as it extends its environmental footprint beyond the boundaries of the power plant site. In this case, the waste will likely remain at the landfill forever. Mining, collecting and transporting the natural gas, coal, oil, and nuclear fuel necessary to generate electricity can also impact land in much the same way by precluding other uses and leaving permanent scars. All of these are known as off-site land impacts. Environmentally sound waste disposal techniques can reduce, but not eliminate, these impacts. 3.7 Sustainable development. The earlier sections of this unit had a look at environmental issues in both a historical as well as a contemporary context. The objective was to raise questions about the process of development seen in terms of industrialization and economic growth. However, environment and development are inexorably interlinked. Development cannot subsist upon deteriorating environmental resources, and environment, in turn, cannot be protected if development does not take into account the environmental problems. Failure to manage the environment and to sustain development threatens the very basis of our existence. The issue of environment and development led to the concept of sustainable development, which we will discuss in this section. 3.7.1 Point Concept of Sustainable Development. The concept of sustainable development was advanced for the first time during the Stockholm Intergovernmental Conference on Human Environment of June 1972 to emphasize the links between development and environmental problems and to promote political and economic change locally, nationally, and globally to tackle these problems. The World Commission on Environment and Development, 1987, also known as the Brundtland Report, further defined the concept of sustainable development as development that meets the need of the present without compromising the ability of the future generations to meet their own needs. Sustainable development is the concept of needs and limitations imposed by technology and society on the environment's ability to meet the present and future needs. Thus, the concept of sustainable development provides a framework for the integration of environmental policies and development strategies having implications at international, national, regional, and local levels. Development should not endanger the natural systems that support life on Earth. Many people in the industrial world today operate with the frontier mentality, which is a human centered view based on three erroneous basic assumptions times the world has an unlimited supply of resources for human use, times humans are apart from nature, and times nature is something to overcome. With this attitude towards nature, technological advances increase our ability to use Earth's resources and thus increase the damage. However, the realization is growing fast that we are in a world of limits, and ever increasing growth of material consumption can only damage the life giving physical components of the environment. Hence, the concept of sustainable development leads us to new resource consumption strategies, which are times conservation or reduction of excessive resource use, times recycling and reuse of materials, and times more use of renewable resources like solar energy rather than non-renewable resources such as oil and coal. Sustainable development also requires meeting the basic needs of all deprived people in this world and extending to all the opportunities to satisfy their aspiration for a better life. Otherwise, the world, in which poverty and inequity are endemic, will always be prone to ecological and other crises. In Gandhiji's words, Earth provides enough to satisfy every man's need but not any man's greed. The UN Conference on Environment and Development held in Rio de Janeiro in 1990 to confirm the pursuit of economic and social progress and equity within the limits of the world's natural resources as a workable aim for everyone, from individuals to governments. The measures needed to ensure sustainable development were further outlined in Agenda 21 to promote sustainable development at local level in developed as well as in developing countries. Though Agenda 21 was a voluntary declaration, it has become a part of several countries' local government. Among developing countries, India leads the way and has implemented 20 Agenda 21's 3.7.2 equity and the common interest. A decade after the Rio summit, we find that sustainable development is not high on international agenda. In many countries, there is a perception that sustainability is expensive to implement and ultimately puts a stop to development. The poorer countries are quite skeptical about the commitments of the rich countries and demand a more equitable sharing of resources, environmental costs, and responsibilities. The World Summit on Sustainable Development held in Johannesburg, South Africa from 24th August to 4th September 2002, also known as Earth Summit 2002, reviewed the progress since 1992 in implementing sustainable development and discussed the way forward. The issues of equity and common interests were taken up again. The summit reaffirmed sustainable development as a central element of the international agenda and gave new impetus to global action to fight poverty and protect the environment. The important linkages between poverty, the environment, and the use of natural resources were emphasized, and governments agreed to and reaffirmed a wide range of concrete commitments and targets for action to achieve more effective implementation of sustainable development objectives. One of the important outcomes was the establishment of a World Solidarity Fund to eradicate poverty and to promote social and human development in the developing countries. 3.7.3 Strategic Imperatives. A shift to a sustainable society will require both policy and institutional changes at local and global level, as well as basic changes in the way people interact with the environment. We will now discuss some of these aspects. Technology. We are aware that advanced technology has played a major role in environmental deterioration and destruction throughout the world. Although a boon to society, technology has taken its own price. The challenge, then, before mankind is to redirect its use to make it more energy efficient, less risky, cleaner, and more humane. As you have read earlier, The new resource point, consumption strategies in sustainable development are conservation, recycling, and reuse of waste material and use of renewable resources wherever possible, environmentally appropriate technology, which relies basically on the use of smaller, repairable machines with production methods that use optimum energy and materials and cause less pollution may be developed. It benefits people, communities, and nations, helping them become more self reliant by using raw materials that are available locally. Such technology is advantageous as it increases employment and requires less investment. It is also efficient on small scale and is compatible with environment because of low energy requirement and minimal pollution. It is especially useful in developing countries that have neither the capital nor the energy resources for advanced technologies more suitable to conditions in the developed world. Countries like India, who have an abundance of manpower, should look for labor intensive rather than capital intensive technology. Sophisticated technology often puts people out of work, although it increases the production. In addition, the maintenance cost and high energy requirement of these technologies are sometimes too much for developing countries. In all countries, rich or poor, the process of economic growth to achieve sustainable society must be based upon the realities of available renewable and non-renewable resources. However, most of the times it is not so. For example, income from forestry operations and mining is generally measured in terms of monetary value of timber and other products extracted minus the cost of extraction, whereas the cost of regenerating the forests or reclamation of land after mining is not taken into account. Similar incomplete accounting is used to justify the growing exploitation of other natural resources. Population. The sustainability of development is intimately linked to the dynamics of population growth. Overall rate of population growth in developed countries is under 1%. However, levels of material and energy use are much higher in these countries. Greater part of global population increase is in developing countries, and it far exceeds their capacity to cope with the demands of the growing population. Therefore, sustainable development can be pursued more easily if population growth is stabilized at a level consistent with productive capacity of the ecosystem. Conservation, as you have read earlier, to meet our basic needs on a sustainable basis, Earth's natural resources must be conserved and enhanced. The shift to environmentally appropriate technology and efficient as well as increased use of renewable resources such as solar energy, wind energy, etc. can help us conserve our natural reserves. Apart from meeting the developmental goals, conservation of nature is also a moral obligation to other living beings and to future generations. Today, however, there is a general awareness of environmental impact in both rich and poor nations. Worldwide, many organizations are involved in the studies of critical issues of energy, population, resources, and environment. Many people in developed countries are simplifying their lifestyle. The number of governmental agencies responsible for environmental protection in poorer nations has increased many folds between 1972 and the present. All these indicate the beginning of an environmental society. Still, we are a long way from becoming a truly sustainable society, which means changes at global level so as to maintain the ecological balance with equitable distribution of benefit without discrimination to all for satisfying the legitimate needs and aspirations. 3.8 Activities 1a. Write an essay on the developmental activities in the last 20 years in your local area. B. Mention the stresses those activities have imposed on the environment. C. Give your suggestions regarding solutions to those environmental stresses. 2. If you were the mayor of a mega city, what would you do to control growth and improve the quality of life? 3.9 Summary. times human activities have resulted in changes in the environment since early times. The growing world population and resource consumption is leading to environmental stress through irreversible impacts at global, regional, and local levels. Times most environmental issues are related either to interaction between human populations and natural resources or factors associated with the increasing human population. However, the environmental issues and concerns of developing and developed countries differ. Priority environmental issues identified by India are in the areas of poverty elimination, education and health care, land degradation, air pollution, loss of biodiversity, management of fresh water resources, and management of hazardous waste. These environmental challenges arise out of developmental activities, and the biggest challenge is to implement development that will lead to greater equity, growth, and sustainability. Times the impacts of various developmental activities on the environment have been discussed. Times agriculture, being the oldest industry in human history, has left its impact on the environment. Traditional as well as modern agricultural methods have changed the land use patterns, affected the health of the natural environment, and changed the flow and direction of materials and livelihood patterns. The impact of modern agriculture has resulted in deforestation, excessive irrigation leading to salinization and waterlogging. The use of fertilizers and plant protection chemicals has increased crop production tremendously but also resulted in loss of micronutrients and caused eutrophication of water bodies. Use of high-yielding varieties and their monoculture had led to outbreaks of crop diseases and depletion of genetic diversity. Times industrialization changed the agriculture-based rural societies to more urban societies and formed what is known as the developed world. All the countries of the developed world are characterized by increased per capita resource and energy consumption. Industry and its products have an impact on the natural resource base of civilization through the entire cycle of raw material exploration, extraction, transformation into products, energy, consumption, and waste generation. The negative impacts of industrialization are pollution of air, land, and water, seen first locally in the developed countries but are now major issues at regional and global levels. Similar problems are seen in most developing countries as industrial growth, increase in automobiles, and urbanization spreads. Times urbanization occurred rapidly in the developed countries and is now a global phenomenon. In fact, most of the urban growth in the future is expected to be seen in the developing world. Among the worst environmental problems faced in the megacities of the developing world are traffic congestion, growing slums, water and air pollution, inadequate sanitation and sewage and solid waste disposal systems. Most of the energy generated for human consumption is from fossil fuels, which leaves its impact on the environment locally in the form of air pollution, acid precipitation, consumption of water for cooling, land degradation, and displacement of human populations. The global effects of generation of energy through non-renewable resources are climate, yang and acid rain. Energy generation using nuclear fuel also has problems of radioactive waste disposal. Times the concept of sustainable development was advanced for the first time in the Brundtland Report of 1987. It emphasizes the links between development and environmental problems and promotes the need for political and economic changes locally, regionally, and globally to tackle these problems. It leads to new resource consumption strategies, conservation or reduction of excessive resource use, recycling and reuse of materials, and more use of renewable resources rather than non-renewable resources. The issues of equity and common sharing were emphasized again during the Earth Summit 2002 held in Johannesburg, South Africa, where nations of the world agreed upon to establish a World Solidarity Fund to eradicate poverty and to promote social and human development in the developing countries. Sustainable development implies a concern about the a. Relationship between resource use, population growth and technological development, b. Production and distribution of resources of food, energy, and industry amongst the developing and developed countries, c. Uneven development and imbalances between the rich and the poor nations, and d. Environmental degradation and ecological disaster. Thank you. Subscribe to our channel for more updates, and we will see you with the next chapter.